Hey, it's Dave with FlipperForce, and today we're going to do a classic showdown of a human versus robot. So I've got a two-page Home Depot receipt here with about 25 different line items. It's got lumber, it's got electrical, it's got piping. Usually this is part of the flip that everyone hates, sitting down and manually tracking all of their project expenses. And so what we're going to do here is we are going to have a little friendly competition between me and our AI Receipt Analyzer to see who can enter the expenses the fastest. So to start, we're going to go ahead and let our robot go first to see what exactly we're up against here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this Analyze Receipt button, and then I'm going to take a sip of my fake coffee in my coffee mug here. And we're just going to let the AI Receipt Analyzer do its thing. Okay, oh boy. So now I'm getting a little nervous here. So that was only about 10 to 11 seconds to enter 25 line items. It appears to have entered all the descriptions here, very detailed descriptions. It even categorized all of the expenses and it entered the amounts. And so it did that all in about 10 or 11 seconds, and I think I'm setting myself up for total failure here. But I'm going to do my best to represent mankind and see if I can beat the robot. So let's restart the clock for me here, and let's get started. Alright, so first I'm going to start with the transaction details up at the top. So we've got the date in here. I probably need to zoom in a little bit so that way I can see the date and invoice number. So I'm going to do that over here on the left hand side, and so you can see the order numbers at the top. That's going to be H3535 235 323. The account is the financial account that we use to actually buy the materials, and then the company is the company that we bought the materials from, which is Home Depot. So kind of blew through the transaction details fairly quick, but that was still probably about 30 to 40 seconds. Still don't have the correct date up here on the transaction, so let's get that correct. So now we've got the transaction details entered. That's pretty straightforward, but what the tedious part is actually entering all the detailed expense items. So this receipt here, this Home Depot receipt, has 25 line items. And to really track all of your expenses and track it to the correct category, so that way you can see where you're spending your money and compare it to your budget versus actuals, you really need to try to itemize all this stuff to see where you're spending your money. So your piping, your electrical, your wiring, that should all be categorized to separate categories. And so one of the most tedious things about these receipts that you have here that have 25 different line items that all need to be categorized to different categories is technically they need to be itemized. And so that's the tedious part here. That's really going to be the time consuming part. So I'll show you how that's done. I just added in a whole bunch of line items here for each individual line item. I have no idea if I added the right amount here, but let's just start entering some of this information here at the top. So first we got to enter the description. So you can see, we bought some paint. Usually you'd categorize that to, interior painting or exterior painting here, so whichever one that needs to be categorized to, and then you'd categorize it to the class, which is labor or material. This is all going to be going toward the material class, and then you would enter the amount here. So you can see now you're going to enter the amount, and so now we've done the very first line item. So we got to do this 25 times for all of these different line items. We got to enter the descriptions, categorize it, put it to the class, and then the amount. So I'm actually going to fast forward through this part so that way you don't have to sit here and watch me do it, but you can see my face in agony as I do this manually for the next who knows how long, 10 minutes or so. And so I'll just show you how it's done manually, and we can compare that to how quickly the AI Receipt Analyzer can do that. So I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so I'm all done here, but I'm off by a penny. So this is another one of the problems with manual data entry here and human error is I'm off by a single cent here, and so now I'm just going back through and reviewing it just to see where that error is, and there it is. So you can see it was 1036. I had plugged in 1035. So let's change that. All right. So now all the values match up on my end, 257.10 to 257.10. Is this thing on? Okay, so wow, that took me about 9 to 10 minutes to enter all that information. And as you can see, I've aged dramatically. I've lost my hair, and what's left of it has completely grayed out. But seriously, that was a very tedious process, and I'm actually pretty exhausted. It took me at least 50 times longer than AI to enter all that data and information. And unfortunately, a lot of the data that I did enter, it's not as detailed. My descriptions are vague. I've got typos in here. My amounts, they weren't accurate originally, so I had to go back and check the numbers. Whereas our AI Receipt Analyzer, it captured all those details, all those detailed descriptions, categorized all the expenses, entered all the amounts in about 10 seconds. So if you are still manually entering receipts and losing your hair like I am, do yourself a favor and head over to FlipperForce and start automating your expense tracking. I'm Dave, and I think I'm going to go take a nap.